Interested to get your reaction to a story I heard breaking on this radio station yesterday on Paul Frank Show on Drive Time. The protesters who stormed the balcony at Birmingham Council House. About 20 people from the Birmingham Against the Cuts group unfurled banners in front of councillors who were preparing to discuss budget proposals, with Birmingham Council saying they have to make savings of at least £110 million in next year's budget. But was that a pointless protest? I only ask the question because Birmingham City Council, whenever you ask them about cuts, they say it's not our fault, Governor, it's down to the government. So, given that they're opposed to the cuts, what's the point of opposing the cuts? At that point, at least, let's get a word with Ed Bauer from Birmingham Against the Cuts. Good morning to you, Ed.
Good morning.
Oh, yeah. So, Birmingham City Council agree that the government shouldn't be cutting their budget, but they are, and so they have to implement those cuts. What option do they have?
Well, I disagree that they agree. They're all members of the Labour Party. The Labour Party is a party who fundamentally supports the austerity measures and the cuts. They all wrote to Eric Pickles, the Minister for Council, saying that they understand the need for cuts. I've seen very little political action from them to stand up for Birmingham, and I want to see more from them politically in terms of resistance. It wasn't so long ago in this country where you had council leaders standing up saying it was better to break the law than to break the poor. But why aren't we seeing anything like that today?
Would you like to see councillors in Birmingham making those kind of comments, encouraging civil disobedience?
Well, absolutely. I don't think the protest could be called pointless at all. To anyone listening to this, you need to Google groups like Birmingham Against the Cuts and Communities Against the Cuts and get involved, because you're very much needed. We need to build a bigger protest and a bigger movement of civil disobedience, building up to the actual vote on the Council House on the 26th of February, so we can actually make these cuts absolutely impossible for either the local council or the central government to implement, because the city simply cannot take them. It's going to be £625 million in the long term out of Birmingham's economy. That will simply take the bottom out of any hope of recovery from the recession. Already people have no jobs. Already people have lost too much in any welfare or social security. Already they've lost too much in public services. We simply can't take any more.
Stay there if you would, Ed. I know that one of the areas that's been targeted for cuts in Birmingham is youth services. Let's get a word with Chris Seeley, who's chairman of the Youth Workers Union. Chris, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Do you see any value in a protest like this?
Yeah, I think it's really important. I mean, your speaker is right. The real problem is in London, but you've got to start off in Birmingham and then build up the campaign. But what will be successful, really, is a national campaign, and David Cameron to change his mind, and Eric Pickles to put more money into Birmingham.
But that's where I'm questioning the point of, I'm not sort of taking sides in the debate, but it's where I'm questioning where the focus of this protest is on councillors in Birmingham who, whatever the record of the Labour Party generally, these are people who would say, we don't want to impose these cuts, we're having to do it because of the settlements imposed on us by national government.
Well, we had a rally on Saturday, said Youth Service, over 100 young people turned out in Chamberlain Square, and that was a rallying point to say don't cut youth clubs and youth services. So that 100 odd young people won't be going to London to meet government ministers, but some will be going. So basically what you do, you have to build a local campaign before you then take a campaign national. So it's important to have local events and local campaigning.
Let's speak to Godfrey Webster from Birmingham Against the Cuts. Good morning, Godfrey. You're the secretary, I know. Were you there last night?
I was there last night, yes. I wasn't on the balcony, but I was at...
Yeah, you weren't one of the 20 on the balcony, but one of about 200 or so people who were there. What did you think you were trying to achieve?
Well, I think it's important to stress the effect that the cuts are going to have on people in Birmingham. And I think we are achieving that. I think people are aware that they didn't elect the Labour Council to implement the same cuts as the Tories demanding. And I think you have to protest. It's a very cynical argument to say there's no point in doing anything. We can change things.
Godfrey, let me interrupt you there, because I don't want you to misrepresent my argument or my question, because I'm not suggesting that it's pointless to do anything. I'm just questioning why questioning the value of protesting at Birmingham Council House, when if you ask every Labour councillor, the ruling Labour administration, they would all agree that central government should not be imposing such a harsh settlement on Birmingham, and they would say, yeah, it's all London's fault, it's all central government's fault. You're protesting against people who are essentially agreeing with you.
Well, the truth is that they've done absolutely nothing to build opposition to the government's proposal.
But is that their job of their councillors? Their job is to manage Birmingham City Council.
Yeah, but if they just carry on managing the Tory cuts, it makes no difference to the people of Birmingham whether the cuts are being made by the Tory Liberal Council that we had till last year or the new Labour Council, does it? And really what Labour has got to do is it's got to actually stand up to the government and start building a national movement to change the position of the government. Birmingham could set a budget that is based on the actual needs of the people of Birmingham and fight to try and implement that.
I mean, it couldn't legally do it, could it? Because if it increased its budget beyond a certain amount, the only way it could get that extra money would be through additional council tax, and it would have to have a referendum on imposing that council tax. It just doesn't have the authority to impose a council tax increase, which would pay for a bigger spend.
Well, it can set a budget which is outside of what the government demands. And it's then up to the government to use the auditors to come in and try and stop the council. But if that's happening on a national scale, in the end, the government has to send in administrators to administrate all the local councils around the country, which is a practically impossible thing for the government to try and do against the wishes of all the people who've elected Labour councils. So there is the opportunity there to build a huge movement against the cuts. If the Labour Party in Birmingham is prepared to, grasp the nettle and start the ball rolling.
Gents, we might return to this subject again in the next few days. Godfrey Webster, thank you, from Birmingham Against the Cuts. Likewise, Ed Bauer from Birmingham Against the Cuts, and Chris Seeley, who's chairman of the Youth Workers Union. Very interesting, isn't it? And three people who, one way or another, are involved in active protest in Birmingham, trying to protect the services that they believe in, that in some cases they work in.